thought-provoking, always smoking.
So with Bonnie Brown, you know, say, we want to make a big apology to Nomads. I tell you, Nomads, I don't know. I owe you 2, I owe you 3. Trust me, I owe you 5, 10, and 11. Yeah, man, believe you me, I owe no big time. Big time I owe no. I don't know what me I talk about still, but me don't know it's what go on, so. I don't know it's what go on, so boy, but I will apologize. Nomads with Sly and Robbie. Here goes. She mad lit. Where you coming up at? Group called Nomad. This is the Cutting Edge on RFM there with you. And next Wednesday. You know, say last week we don't play a thing, but through the computer where we have the thing and everybody that work, we'll have to resort to our next computer. But now we get back the computer, give thanks to Cuban. We want you love Cuban, you know, for rescue me. Big up Cuban for rescue me. Trust me, man. May I tell you, you rescue me good time. So we have the computer, you know, we have the thing where we did want to play. So we're going to play it tonight as part of a revision. Because you know, say sometimes we're going to the revision, but as we said, this is the 25 years celebration of IRFM. And we're there for 23 years. Long time that, you know. Trust me, a long time. 23 years we're there. I try to get the people, them brains unwashed. We try to unwash the people, their brains, but why may I tell you, the people, them brains hard, Rasta. Hard. But we still continue the journey because you know the good must overcome evil, and victory is what we are dealing with now. We're not dealing with no failure business. You know, not failure. We're not work with the failure thing. Because we see the fruits of our labor still. We see it develop into certain things, and even though it could have go further, but we feel good for know say at least some ones and ones out there take it serious and push it further. Even the youth them by YouTube, SRL and all them big radio station, they brethren just come check me a while ago from London there, where you know say and them man they make people in England know say Mutabaruka have a program named Cutting Edge. And when you go to England, and that the people them have a self on the roadside. Believe you me, I kid you not. You understand? And now we hear say Cutting Edge is heard in 150 different countries all over the world that you know. Yeah man, for one program here in 150 different country is really something. So we heal it up because as we say it helped over the years, it helped. And we give thanks to that. And we're still there. Yeah, we still not put no hole in the RFM pocket. Mr. Young used to say, Mutabaruka, I don't business where you want doing as long as you don't put no hole in my pocket. Well, we never put no hole in Mr. Young pocket for 20 odd years. We don't really want to put no hole in nobody pocket, you know, but you don't know, say, hole can go in a pocket because of things where you say. And things where people don't like where you say it. You understand? So, but we kind of get over certain things. We kind of understand the thing more clear and all. So we don't think we want to put no hole in no one pocket. But you know, say, my head kind of giddy. I don't know if I behave myself sometimes. You understand? We really don't know if I behave myself. So we want to play the song here. We played the other day. We want to play it now because I feel it's a sweet rendition of a tune I love for a long time, you know. I love that tune a long time. I know me here a Jamaican youth out of Portmore production come to this tune here. And I love the tune. And I hope you love it too. This is the Cutting Edge on RFM. Long time me not hear a tune, a soulful instrumental tune. I come out of a studio in a Jamaica. Long time. Where it's not even reggae. This is a cover version of a tune named Float On, and he might do it the proper way. May I tell you, he might do it the proper way. Sweet. Hey, by the way, Abba, you can call me now, after 5 minutes. You call me 5 hours after. Well, you're 5 minutes long, Rasta.
J.
Yeah, this is the cutting edge. You know, say some things are going in the so-called Middle East. They were, even though it's a far from way, but it have some serious indirect relationship with how we run our life, yes, and how we're going to run our life, yes, you know, because we see this group here named ISIS. Olampan 2 Japanese and I demand $100 million, which you know say them not really serious about that. But the problem with it is that it look like them kill one of the Japanese, them and one left now, and them a demand that a woman who related to Baghdadi, the leader, who did strap on a bomb on her for blow up and it never explode. So them all her and lock her up. The Jordanians, them have her. Now, them a demand, this is a terrorist group now, so-called terrorist group, where seem to be doing some things like a government. Them a demand the release of this woman for the Japanese. But meanwhile, them do that, them all on a Jordanian pilot. Now, this is very interesting, you know, because them all on a Jordanian pilot, them have the Japanese, them are asked for the release of the woman for the Japanese. But here the Jordanian, them put, the Jordanian, them put the thing in some serious mix up and blender, you know. The Jordanian, them say, all right, here what we're going to do. We're going to release the woman if you give it back our pilot. We should have nothing to do with the Japanese. We should have nothing to do with the Japanese man, you know. So the Japanese, them now in a serious dilemma now because them have to attack the Jordanians, them. They might try and make some contact with the ISIS people, them. And the Jordanians, them might say, all right, here we know. Why, you know, so me not really business with the Japanese man, you know, business with our pilot. So you ask the ISIS them now. If you release our pilot, we give the woman. So we don't know what happened to the Japanese man, you know. Or really and truly, we don't even know what happened to the pilot. Because them man, they do them thing they just to get some publicity, and them have a PR thing we are going for them, we're not easy. We're not easy, you know. And the weirdest part of it, you know, a whole heap of them man there, you know, is all time Saddam Hussein, big soldier them, from them time there, who get disgruntled over where going in Iraq, you know, and start to rise up. So we're going to see how that pan out, you know, because apart from that, because we see some really weird things are going on. The president, what them call him, the prime minister for Israel there, him get invitation from the opposition party, the Republican them, in America, to come to America, come make speech. And don't feel no way if the Democrat them no vex about that, you know. Because you're going to invite a president come our country to come talk. And it's not the government of the country invite him. They are the government of the country do have nothing to do with him. But meanwhile, he might do that, you know. He might plan now to go raise a war against Hezbollah. That's why I'm saying now some things are going down there so where even though they're far from me, but the implications is very serious because apparently them kill a Hezbollah soldier. The Israeli them kill a Hezbollah soldier and an Iranian soldier. And then Hezbollah now go kill 2 Israeli soldiers. And the Israeli them are going to retaliate against Hezbollah. It's a serious thing, you know. Because this can be a real outright war, you know. You don't understand where I'm going on this. So this can be an outright war. Because it's like kill for kill. And who can kill the most? And Hezbollah is not like the other one them in a Palestinian, the Palestinian, what them call them, the other group there where run the place. It's not like them, you know, them Hezbollah man I get some serious backing from other places. Meanwhile, the king of Saudi Arabia dead, and the next man take over for him. Meanwhile, Yemen is in turmoil, topsy-turvy now, confusion. Even though it's far from we, you know, we might up here, so now make everything look fine and dandy, you know, but everything we are going there, so, you know, we have a direct relationship to America. And, you know, when it affects America, it affects we. Because the thing we're going in France the other day, where you hear the big alabaloo about, you know, is nothing compared to where the man them have under them cap a plan. You see how much plane have to turn back the other day last week? Delta Airline, JetBlue, them have to escort JetBlue, 2 JetBlue flights out of the year. Delta have to turn back because bomb scare upon the plane. Some man call in bomb scare. Then them find a little drone. I don't know where I'm going, you know. A little drone land upon the White House land. A little man come forward and say, boy, you want this a little toy thing we did have, you know, but they might examine it and said this toy thing could have carry certain things upon it. So we don't know if it's really a toy thing as called to where we are here, but an actual drone land upon the White House land. Meanwhile, Obama's daughters was there. The implications is devastating. So we say, I will leave a little things that itch up around the corner, you know. Meanwhile, you have what the Boko Haram, them now are train children. You remember when they did that train, you remember when the Sierra Leone uprising did go on, them did have what children, soldiers. Years ago we play a tape. When the Sierra Leone thing did really depend on the news front, we did play a tape about children soldiers. Well, these Boko Haram people, them are train some little children with, hey, if you ever see little people with some long AK-47 in them and a train in Rasta for soldier, for kill people. And them are train little girls now, 10-year-old girl, tie and bump on them, for stand up in a certain marketplace and remotely control, blow up, hey. But I don't know what kind of people them the Rasta. Believe you me. Me don't know what kind of heart or what kind of thinking in the name of God according to them. Allah Akbar. I want to know what is it. Well, we know sometimes we drive the people them still. Sometimes it's desperation and oppression. But for a man reach that level there, you know, where him a tie and bump and children for go blow up in a market, you know. But it's mind-boggling, Rasta. Mind-boggling. And for sure, you have a next set of black people now, like for instance, the ANC. There was a thing with the ANC, you know. Them did have a rule during the time of apartheid, you know. Apartheid. The ANC have a rule, you know, where them bomb up buildings and not people. Yeah, that was a different fight going on, so. Where them thing was to bomb up buildings and not people. So them would have really target some buildings and make sure it's nobody not in the building and blow up the building and left the people them. Meanwhile, white people have bomb where kill people and left building. Them call it the neutron bomb, where it kill people and left building. And now we see in the name of a religion. Man, I thought Sharia law, them want to put up to one thing, you know, really is a hardcore religious belief. And you know, so every age where we go through, you know, you have religions that come up with these little things, you know, especially Christianity and Islam. Because Christianity, they have feel little time when it's a show you say, well, right now, if you go against the Pope, you're going to get burned. And you have to prove, say you're not witch, and you have to prove, say you're not warlock, and you have to prove this, prove that. And you have to make swear to this and all them something there. So Europe go through that stage of sacrificing people in the name of God and the name of Jesus. And now we see so-called people who claim to them is Muslims defend them religion to the point of murder. Yes, and them no see it as murder neither, you know. Them see it as getting rid of the infidels. And anybody who is not, well, as a matter of fact, it's not anybody who is not Muslim, you know. Because Muslim in the gun sight of a whole heap of them too. It's not only that anybody is not Muslim, you know, but anybody though hardcore Muslim to the core, they will kill you too. Because only by the people them who them are, you have Sunni and the Shiite them. And the two of them are Muslim, you know, but you know, so them are murder, what are that? And then you have up at the top of Europe, you know, you have the Ukraine and Russia, and the Russian armed rebels them, who have murdered people up there so too. That is a part where the white people are kill white people, even though they might tell you say white people not kill white people, but you want see we are going up at Ukraine there. And people forget say the worst war in human history, World War I and World War II, is white people that kill white people. Even though people say, boy, you never see black people, you never see white people that kill white people. It is not true. It's not true. White people that kill white people for a long time. Long time. And that is depicted in World War I and World War II. So them just to celebrate 70 years of, what them call it, the thing in Germany, the Holocaust thing where survivors, some survivors, they are celebrate. And them have them story to tell. But it's a serious thing. Serious thing I go on. I don't know how it's going to pan out. Because you know, say that the West side, them a try bring what them call Armageddon, for claim say them a fulfill Bible, which is them a make it, you know. Yeah, them a cut off them foot for match the shoes. So the more it come out, the more people look into the Bible and say, see there, at the last days this. Well, you know, the last days they are 1,000 years ago. Right, something's funny, you know. You know what I'm saying? 1,000 years ago. The real things are terrible people that say the last days. People that say them can't take no more, you know. And the last days gotta come from earth, you know. Even all, when you hear about all the bubonic plague, Europe, during the time of the bubonic plague, them it feels say it was the revelation of Jesus Christ now going to fulfill itself now, because the way they devastate Europe, you know, millions of people are dead. Them that feel say this is it now, this is the end of time now, this is it. You couldn't tell them say this is not it, this is it. Well, you see them go through and survive now for go oppress other people and turn people into slave and all them something there. So them not even in nothing about no last days again. And black people, you know, and they talk about last days. Every time something wrong with black people, they talk about, boy, God so come from earth. The way the people, them wicked, God so come from earth. And every generation, people that say God so come from earth. And you have people actually live for that. Yeah, man, you have people that live for that, you know. Put all of them faith and hope that one day, as a matter of fact, you know, most American believe say them are go in at the time when Jesus, when the rapture happen. Most American believe that. Most American who believe in this Christian thinking, believes that them going to live in at the time when Jesus come back. Can you believe that? And you have black people sitting here, so I think the same thing, you know. Every time something go wrong, them say, see the Almighty God, Jesus will come back from earth. Man heart go hard like stone. But man heart was stone for a long time. It's just that we live in a time now when we can say that. Who can tell maybe 100 years ago, or sorry, 100 years from now, it's going to be even more devastating, and then it's still never see nobody come from the earth. Because here man talk about the earth plan destroy the planet and the planet. Man can't destroy the planet. No care how much plastic buckle in putting at the earth. It can't destroy the earth. But here what it going to do? It's going to destroy human being. Because life will get so miserable for human being for survive on earth. That you're going to have a planet of the apes. For those of you who know about that story, when them send the man in this ship and him end up in a land where ape rule. Ape is like human beings. And the ape them start to angle them like them is all the ape, all the animal, all man used to angle the ape. But guess what? It's him see the Statue of Liberty under the sun. And him realize that him never gone on a different planet and still earth him the depend. Earth him the depend still him never know, say. And the same earth him depend. But when him look, him say, apes are rule. Apes have intelligence and all them thing there. So, we are saying that, believe it or not, the only thing I go here now, you know. Look how much animal man eat. look how much cow man eat. How much goat man eat. How much bird man eat. All we know say, a little plan now, them now conjure up some plan. All we know say the cow them now organize up themselves to telepathic communication because we lose all that telepathic communication, you know. We have to buy phone card. We have to buy phone card to communicate. Maybe the cow them and the goat them and the bird them never lose that. So who to tell? Maybe them a conjure up some conspiracy against human beings for all them murder when them commit against the animal them. All the season when them talk about a bird season. You know, recently we tell you about the scientists them say 50 years from now you're gonna have rat. We're big like dog and cat. Well, I kid you not. I kid you not, and I have the picture to prove it too. And I can't tell you which part of the picture there. But you know, a man hear me talk about this on the radio, you know, and him say Mutabaruka. You see where you are said there, about 50 years from now, me gonna tell you about something we go on just the other day in New York, in the Bronx. Them find a rat, not even one rat, it's not even one rat. Come here, tell you the truth, you know, the biggest rat them me see, I know in Jamaica, you know, the biggest rat them me see are in the subway in New York City. Me I tell you, the biggest rat them me ever see are in the subway in New York City. But listen to this. Listen to this now. The brethren send me an article where them find some rat in a Bronx, in a shoe store, where measure from them head to them tail 36 inches long. Yeah, 36 inches. You know what 36 inches is? That is 1 yard. You know how much 1 yard is? Hold out your hand sideways from your tip of your finger to your mouth. Because so we measure cloth in Africa. A so cloth measure in Africa. When you want to know 1 yard of cloth, you hold out the cloth, stretch out your hand, and hold it at your mouth, and that's a 1 yard. Now look at your hand, look at your tip of your hand to your mouth. The man them find some rat in a Bronx. We measure 1 yard from mouth. The man kill one of them and hold it now, and you know that me look on the rest of me and say, but no, if me ever see a rat like that in my house, you know, me not stay at the house there. If me ever see a rat like that in my house, me I find somewhere else to go live. Because it means I know one of them there. And me I want to wake up one night and when me open my eye, me see a rat eye face my eye. Can you imagine you open your eye in your bed and when you look, you see 2 eyes look by you? And I know your wife or your husband is a rat. And you hear your dog a ball and when you look downstairs, it's a rat that kill your dog. When you know that the dog supposed to kill the rat. Or when you look, you have 2 puss in your house. And the rat that kill your puss. What's a arrow? It's like a horror thing, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. Me have the picture of them in my computer. The man, them find rat in a Bronx. I think it's a Foot Locker store too, you know. I have some store named Foot Locker store. Them find the rat is 36 inches long. When the man they measure it from head to tail, to the head of them tail. Believe you me, how do we know that these rat, because rat sensibly, you know? Rat, hey, you think, what time of the interview? 11 o'clock, yes. You know, you think, say, you remember them rat chop where you used to put each a little thing pan it and bend it, twist it up and push a little metal in it and it all up. And you really believe say a rat don't know about that now? You really believe say a rat don't know say for him grandparents and him ancestors, the amount of him ancestors were dead with a rat trap there. Him must know about that now. So them have to devise some other rat trap. I mean, them have some really weird. You know, one of the best rat trap me see right now is the one with sticky, you know. I'll tell you, the one not easy. A rat stand up on it, him done with it, you know, him just laid it so. Yeah, click it. All right, because part of this reason they have come forward. This is the cutting edge on RFM. All right, here goes. Pamal. It's this Sunday, right down there, North Street and Orange Street corner there. Big yard, them call it. We have Lego. Yeah, Lego. How you do?
Yeah, Bridge. Remember, King?
No, you know, say, I know you're the man who are all on this Dennis Brown thing for years. And as I say, it has grown so much that now we have 2 different things are going for Dennis Brown downtown.
Sure.
And now RFM on board. We know, say, RFM are going to a big yard. And then them still going to have the concert downtown, though, don't it?
Yeah, on the 22nd. That.
Oh, they move it to the 20. Oh, last year they keep the 22nd, though.
No, they keep about the 17th or the 18th. One of them did.
Okay, all right. So why how that goes? Tell me how that goes. Because I know it do get too big for big yard still, but why got it on the 22nd?
Yeah, no, it get too big up there and thing, you know. And we have to move it down to the waterfront. Are you kind of predict it to your motor?
A long time.
Are you the predict it, you know, because you don't keep saying, boy, waterfront.
Yeah,
but how funny it is, you know. You see when you attack that the year there?
Yeah.
It's like I vision, you know. Say D Brown, I drive and go back up D Brown in a place, right? And when I back up D Brown in the place, D Brown said to me, Mr. D Brown, oh, you make me keep things here and people them say dead, I not dead. And said to me, say, God, let's go on the way, because I go down on the whole harbor, go on with that thing, you know. So let's go on the way,
Yeah.
And eventually they show it down on the whole harbor, because the whole harbor that in it.
Yeah, of course, Victoria Pier the whole harbor, man.
Yeah, so the whole harbor, man, right down the front of the whole harbor.
Yeah.
And they set up right away. The wharf belonged to not Wherry Wharf. The wharf which was end up first at Church Street wharf.
Yeah.
Yeah, turn up at Church Street, which was a lumber yard. When them used to bring the lumber, them coming
big
from.
boat, trying to find the boat them.
Yeah, on the boat, them there.
Yeah. All right.
The lumber boat, the Kirk nail boat.
And when I to dive up money down at Victoria Pier there, you know. Well,
yeah, man. I think, man, I don't go some learn to swim, you know. Not the lane, not the little water will come up, not the lane, that's why, you know.
And you know, so you could have look and see the bottom of the water them days there.
Yeah, man, that's true, man.
Yeah, Merkel Bank
I watch
over
the money come down, but you have to dive on like and catch it when it come up, you know?
You know,
like
me wait till it sink, man, and dive down there. Believe all down Merkel Bank there. But, all right, so, North Street.
Well, you turn up with the two things now, Muta, right? So you go up on the waterfront, the people them up there first, so boy, I think for going for D-Brown and things. So, last year now, it's like was the D-Brown birthday. Saturday was D-Brown birthday. So Stereograph link up with Uri and I said, well, because Uri come to me and, because originally when Dennis is dead, you know, Uri did play Exodus, Nuclear, Jammies, and Jack Scorpio. They used to play the Orange Street and Black it out, same way. So Stereograph come and say, well, let's go, we keep the thing. I say, yeah, man. And I eat that as the birthday thing, and it keep, and well, it was well attended.
Yeah.
Well attended, may I tell you, man, and the police have give it till 2 o'clock. So this year the people are looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So Sunday now coming is D-Brown birthday.
Yes.
The 1st of February. So we'll put it on back again, you know. But this time we are gonna have we are gonna have a little band too, you know. A little band named Exodus Revolution. I got to do some tune after IRFM finish.
All right, IRFM supposedly from 2 to 6, I think, with with
Bob Clark.
And then what gonna happen after 6 now? What gonna happen? The sound system never come said we Stereograph and them sound there.
No, not Stereograph. You're gonna use with the soul tone.
Okay.
Yeah, because I remember when we start by the D-Brown thing 2009 now.
Yeah.
And it come start play, you know?
Yes.
And then with a D-Brown bridge in CV, you know?
Yeah, so that's how we go until whatsoever will the people them decide.
Yeah, well, you could have get it till about hopefully 1 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
But you know, say, well,
yeah.
On a Sunday night, it's a 12 o'clock thing, you know?
Yeah, okay, all right. So, well, I'm glad to hear say IRFM really come on board on the level that stage.
Yeah, come on board.
It's sweet.
Yeah, it come on board.
That means, you know, to the people that come there from that day because Bob Clark live out there. And with the big sound. Yeah, and, you know, Dennis Brown straight. All right. So tell me exactly what the day are going to look like. You know, what going to really happen? I mean, all right, so IRFM are going to from 2. Bob Clark have spin music and a talk and I have guests and them something there. And then you say the next set will come.
Yeah, we have a little band named Exodus Revolution, a little young band where we start downtown there, you know?
Okay. Which artists them? Are those artists from the area? Little artists from the area?
Yes, artists from the area and 1 and 2 other come in, you know?
Yeah.
They're coming from Sweden.
Yeah.
And me and Junior Natural and Aki and Salfish Everest. You have a policeman there. Bad motor.
Yeah.
The man bad from D-Brown. For the Central Police Station.
I think give me 2 CD though. I think I MC might come down, so come give me 2 CD, man.
Yeah, and Jabuk supposed to come in too, you know?
Yes. All right, and you said that I'm supposed to end maybe 1 o'clock by the level.
Yeah, about 12, so you know? I don't pick up the thing name yet, but I know the idea to be picked up. I don't know the time after Saturday I'll give because we're supposed to meet with them tomorrow.
And then still I go block off the road for go right down to Charles Street.
They were blocked from Charles Street. Okay,
Charles Street go to
the work agency came and look at the place today and then they wanted to see the run and so the bus them could have turned because they wanted to say if the place was big enough and everything is okay now. They will pick up everything over the weekend by now and started all of the permits and things they're in place.
Yes, glad to hear that. All right, so, you know, so we have a down the said way because, you know, so why you're and not Sunday night.
Yeah, I think, you know.
So we have got down there, so, and yeah, all right, so we want the people them know that IRFM, a broadcast live, first time from Dennis Brown celebration. Big yard.
The birthday dance, look at the birthday dance, you know?
The birthday dance. All right,
the birthday dance.
Roadblock from North Street to Charles Street, roadblock up.
Yeah.
Hey, but me remember one time the stage show keep it up, and I weird dog at the bottom of the road, me say people.
But motor, you know, me to tell Judah Lincoln, so this thing and not stop till you reach seaside, you know.
No, me I tell you, man. One year, me go down there, me I say, but wait. This not normal, Rasta. People go.
Shaggy said to Shaggy come here to come work with me.
Yeah.
And the gang there, you know.
Yeah.
And Shaggy sit and said, then they better get no sponsor. I said, no, brother. He said, I have to bring in some people for you. But the place too small.
Yeah. But no sponsors. The sponsor them did hold on, never hold on Panthers at all. But only get sponsors for next 2 weeks time though, 3 weeks time.
Well, yeah, because it work, we work, and that show work with Jaria still, you know?
No, but I mean private sector. I'm not talking about Jaria. I'm not talking about private sector. Them not come on.
But you know what thing we are keep?
Downtown. No, not the 120 at the 20. The one downtown man on the wharf, yeah.
Yeah, the one we downtown on the wharf, and we do it with, between we and Sounds and Pressure and Jaria. It's a coordination of, you know, we do that one.
Yeah, but when I say, who you just call a brethren and brethren, I talk about the private sector.
Well, we don't get that from private sector. 1 year we get Kentucky did come in and we Cinco.
Okay. Well, then they're on board again. Them come off of the board.
Well, them come off. Them the police still, you know.
Okay.
But like me say now.
Yes. I just Jaria
did it to the organizer and get the artist and thing and come on a Jaria. At first, when we start up Orange Street, you know, the first Mr. Campbell, him never there with Jerry at that time, but him bring in some tents and thing and give you a Fred them was a Jerry and them come in and help, you know? And Dennis Howard and them and was a community effort, you understand? Just to build our own stage and put everything together, you know?
All right, yes.
But we get a whole pair for them to be moved.
Oh, you mean, man, the concert did nice last year, man. It did nice.
Yeah, man.
So me, I look forward to this live broadcast, trust me, because, you know, so when RFM come out anyway, you know, it's a guaranteed ram jam of business are going on.
And hopefully, if a lot of the people will go with D Brown, who some of the big man, they will go with D Brown.
Yes.
You know about him more than me. He made them and them grow up together. All him first girlfriend and all them way there. I never look forward to it.
All right, so we give thanks also. We are saying now RFM live on North Street and in between North Street and Charles Street.
Charles Street, Orange Street, Beach Street to call it, you know?
Yeah.
Original Beach Street.
No, Prince Buster the kind that feed down there. Shaking up on Orange Street.
Yeah.
No, Prince Buster. I remember Prince Buster already there, right at the corner.
Prince Buster, let me find my place, you know.
No, me know Prince Buster. That means, but him did round the corner to road at Charles Street. That's all.
And Scratch Perry.
Yes.
Paxton, Bonnie Lee.
Augustus Pablo's up there, so.
Augustus
Beverly's cross the road over there, so.
Beverly's Success Records.
Yes.
Martins at Caribbean. Then we get the place down the road to buy for Bob Marley. Then we get the press plant. They'd have Chin's Radio down the road, and Palmer's there, the Jet Star of England.
You have techniques down the back. Yes. Everybody, Derek King Street and Charles Street corner, so Beeson Street, Beeson Street and Charles Street. Derek Harriet, one stop.
No, King Street.
King Street and
King Street and Beeson Street.
With Tough Gang, they have Beeson Street and Chancellor Lane, they saw right at the corner, they saw.
Not Tough Gang, man. Channel 1.
No, wait, no, man. Hold on. Between King Street and Chancellor
and Beeson Street between Chancellor Lane.
Yeah, Tough Gang did there, so man.
Yeah, Tough Gang did there, so Key Touch did there, so.
Yeah, and
Channel 1 come build them press the plant right there at the center.
Yeah, and African Museum down at the corner there, so with Randy's down there, so too.
Yeah, Randy.
People around that area. So how them not revive up, them? I mean, me know hear some jingles and all them, man.
I think then Chris Chin was talking down a Rebel Salute and whoever kind of tourist thing going through the area, you know? Right? Some of the historical places, the Foresters Hall, the Liberty Hall, Kingsland, and all the dance hall, you know, see? So what kind of tour carry them? There's a Nanny's Corner, Lovely, and which Coxon start from. And then they carry them down to Liberty Hall, War Theatre, Randy's, and come up back the road. So I was talking to Chris and telling him to fix up upstairs because all of the equipment around this have all of them to make still inside that place. But them under dust.
Yeah.
You know, see it?
Yeah. Anyway, we look forward to this thing. We look forward to it.
Yes, okay.
Dennis Brown tribute. The first.
That's the one downtown. This one a Dennis Brown birthday, dad.
Dennis Brown, all right. Dennis Brown birthday, but this Sunday.
Yeah.
Kicking off from 2 with IRFM, yes. And then.
With the soul tone. Our play.
All right. And after 6 now, you have the party swinging said way. Go right till you say when.
Names Exodus Revolution.
All right, so give thanks, Bridget. But we have to remember, say you have studio down there too.
You don't know that the European you come to.
You know,
give me Buster send me a letter, you know.
People's Court. People's Court 1 and 2, man.
Yeah, People's Court.
And people don't say you're
right. Like me produce the truth. Yeah. Yeah, and come with the road and me buy
and him tell me say him no mind it. Him tell me say him no mind it, you know.
But him make a lie and send me a letter, but me not pay that.
Me see my England, them say, boy, Muta, if I was somebody else, you know, it's not see you, you know, but it's try you, everything cool still. So I don't know where I say the letter.
From them time, Muta, from them time, at the early time, me not pay no mind.
Yeah.
That and show it.
All right, sir. So anyway, give thanks.
Me and him good still. Me there the other day in a bus time.
The studio still run nice though.
No, I really go on the street. Some look at you, but them go on to some production, but you know, some look at you, but them go on because I know Muta opportunity have to create for you, you know, and I get you know, some motor gunman, you know.
Yeah, that's what I say.
You know, see, if you create opportunity enough for you, a chance you have to take, and that I'm enough you. Not a garrisonization, you know.
Yeah.
You get an opportunity, so you just take chance and just leave where him learn and go do anything. And you know, see no virgin.
Yeah, man.
And that them do it because the people them just capture place because them not no civic pride to take care of nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know, see virgin and that the politician them do it.
Yeah.
So I'm blessed to
anyway, give thanks, Brad. I'm glad to see you sometime down our street too.
Yeah, but when I talk to the man, the crowd down the prayer, you have to park up and make the next man play.
No, the crowd tick. Well, you know the crowd, at 2 o'clock the crowd get ticking out, trust me.
They come and them time me come in at 2 o'clock, you know.
Yeah, the crowd
and like after me coming, the boy, I see the people look up, be like, like a star, man.
Me I tell you, man.
Yeah, man, let me say, boy, you have to take a race and make the next man take a...
One time I look downstairs now, I see the most of car come up the road and I say, wait, this way I go on out there, so when I look, the place jam up, could have hardly seen nobody.
So we done a real town and the police come lock us up 2 o'clock. Everybody does head for this, so.
Yeah. All right, brethren, give thanks, yeah?
Yeah, give thanks and guidance and protection, brother.
Yeah, man, Lego man, my brethren, from a longer time. You know, people scored part 2 about the preacher, them a film vice, the panic, you know. Yeah, film vice, the panic. This Sunday, IRFM, live. When we say live, I mean live. You go down there, Neil?
Yes, sir.
Come here, bring that, come give me. You go down there? No, me see you, me ask if you go down there.
Sunday?
Yeah.
Me are there town Sunday, man.
No, me not ask if you go there town, me ask if you go down at... Oh, the man, what kind of ambiguous... No, me never say if you go there town, me ask if you go down at the celebration.
Yes.
You go down there?
Yes.
All right, you go taking some Dennis Brown too, from Bob Clark. I know say Bob Clark will play Dennis Brown too, but you never hear before.
Big fan.
Eh? Sunday, February 1st, Bob Clark, live from Big Yard on Orange Street, Kingston, from 2 p.m. to 6. And you can watch it free online too. IRFM.net. So, yes, Dennis Brown 58th birthday bash. Right down there, so between North Street and Charles Street. You can't miss it. Trust me. There's no way you can miss it. You know, say, Culture just celebrate Black History Month next week. We're going to start celebrate Black History Month as of next week. So you can look out for some serious reasoning and interjection of tapes. And as we say, don't be surprised, we're going to play some tapes or we play from a longer time, but it really have an effect upon the people them. And we know, say, new listeners you know, people who hear already never did hear it before, people who never hear it before hear it now. So we want you to look out for that. You have 4 Wednesday in a Wednesday in a February. So we are going to celebrate Black History Month, cutting edge Black History Month celebration that take place. Okay, so we could go back to Pamal and then we bring in the thing we want. We're carrying go to college, theological college tonight. Yes, I don't know. All right, yes. We're carrying go to theological college tonight. Them information you can get it at university sometime, but you can get it right here. And we have played it before. We're going to play it again. The fee says a very important tape. Very, very important. Given the reasonings about what in the Bible, what wrong, what right, if you should accept this or accept that. Some people's fundamentalists like the ISIS people that would go out the Bible, you know. Is it politician or religious people? I tell you, man, them not easy, you know. Politician and religious people. Anyway, it name don't know much about the Bible. You know, so most people have Bible in their house, but them not read it. And most people quote the Bible, and when you ask them which part of the Bible, them say that them don't know. It's like me hear a man the other day, a man who's supposed to know, he must say, the 3 wise men, and no, none of the Bible tell you about no 3 wise men, and then you know them have all things about Eve eat apple, and the Bible tell you nothing about no apple. But this is the way it go. A whole heap of people regurgitate things over the years. And when you ask them which part of them say in the Bible, but them don't know which part of the Bible they because really and truly, not like that no in the Bible, not 3 wise men no in the Bible, no apple no in the Bible. But people keep saying these things. So we want to clarify certain things out of this thing here tonight. We're going to replay something that we played before. So make we line it up, but we're going to go back to Pamal.
Thought-provoking, always smoking. Lyrics like a bazooka. You are listening to Mutabaruka.
Hello, this is Ken Davis. When I was in the 6th grade, a building was going up across the street from my school. Like most 10 or 11-year-old boys, I preferred watching bulldozers in action and concrete being poured to whatever was being written on the blackboard. I spent a lot of 6th grade gazing out the window. I don't think I learned anything that year. The red brick structure I watched rising with such absorbed fascination was a church. Unlike the soaring God, you'll find God's little instruction book, a set of divine plans for building an ark. Unfortunately, like most directions that come with bicycles or appliances, these are a little sketchy, providing little more than the rough dimensions of 300 by 50 by 30 cubits, or roughly 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high. God told Noah to add a roof and put in 3 decks. Beyond that, God's instructions came without a diagram, unless Noah threw away the blueprints when he finished. So we should count Noah putting this thing together in time to have understood buttresses and load-bearing walls, but he didn't know his Bible. He wasn't alone. Millions of people around the world own a Bible, profess to read it, and follow its dictates. Many say they study it daily, but most of us have never looked at a Bible, despite insisting that it is important. According to one recent survey, 9 out of 10 Americans own a Bible, but half never read it. Why? For most folks, the Bible is hard to understand. It's confusing. It's contradictory. It's boring. In other words, the Bible perfectly fits Mark Twain's definition of a classic, a book which people praise and don't read. Not only do we praise the Bible, but we quote it daily in public and private. It permeates our language and laws. It is in our courts for administering oaths. Despite the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, it is on the Capitol steps when America inaugurates a president. It is cited by politicians and preachers, playwrights and poets, peace lovers and provocateurs. As its phenomenal sales prove, the Bible holds a special place in nearly every country in the world. There are complete Bibles in more than 40 European languages, 125 Asian and Pacific Island languages, and Bible translations into more than 100 African languages, with another 500 African language versions of some portion of the Bible. at least 15 complete Native American Bibles have been produced. In English, there are more than 3,000 versions of the entire Bible or portions of the Bible. The King James Version, first produced in 1611, and the Revised Standard Version remain the most popular translations, but publishers thrive on introducing new versions and specialty Bibles every year. The Living Bible, one contemporary paraphrased version, has sold more than 40 million copies since 1971. Around the world, active Bible study classes attract millions of students. So whether we worship in some formal setting or not, it is clear that people of nearly every nation remain fascinated by the Bible and its rich treasury of stories and lessons. To many of them, it is still the greatest story ever told. For millions of Christians, the Old and New Testaments make up the good book. For Jews, there are no Old and New Testaments, only the collection of Hebrew scriptures that are equivalent to the Christian Old Testament. In spite of these differences, the common chord for Christian and Jews is strong. These books have been the source of inspiration, healing, spiritual guidance, and ethical rules for thousands of years. The Bible is clearly many things to many people. The problem is, most of us don't know much about the Bible. Raised in a secular, media-saturated world in which references to God and religion leave us in embarrassed silence, we have wide-ranging reasons for this ignorance. For some, it was simply being bored by the drone of Sunday school or Hebrew class. Others received their Bible basics from the great but factually flawed Hollywood epics like The Ten Commandments, The Greatest Story Ever Told, and The Robe. Even those who think they know the Bible are surprised when they learn that their facts are often half-truths, misinformation, or dimly remembered stories cleaned up for synagogue and Sunday school. Sure, most people have some recollection of Noah, Abraham, and Jesus, but they are less likely to know about the tales of rape, impaling, and ethnic cleansing routinely found in the Bible. These are timeless stories with timeless themes: justice and morality, vengeance and murder, sin and redemption. Raised in a traditional Protestant church with a full menu of Christmas pageants and confirmation classes, I thought I possessed a fairly solid biblical education. While attending a Lutheran college and later Jesuit Fordham University, I continued to study the literature and history of the Bible. But then, in writing an earlier book called Don't Know Much About Geography, I posed a few simple questions related to the Bible. Where was the Garden of Eden? What is the world's oldest city? Did Moses really cross the Red Sea? That's when I got some surprises. In researching the world's oldest city, for instance, I learned that Joshua's Jericho is one of the oldest of human settlements. It also lies on a major earthquake zone. Could that simple fact of geology have had anything to do with those famous walls tumbling down? Then I discovered that Moses and the tribes of Israel never crossed the Red Sea, but escaped from Pharaoh and his chariots across the Sea of Reeds, an uncertain designation which might be one of several Egyptian lakes, or a marshy section of the Nile Delta. This mistranslation crept into the Greek version and was uncovered by modern scholars with access to old Hebrew manuscripts. To me, the fact that the Exodus, one of the key stories in the Bible, was garbled by a mistranslation was a striking revelation, and it set me to thinking, how many other glitches are there in the Bible? How many other little mistakes in translation have blurred our understanding of the real story? My questions about the Bible took a more troubling turn when I wrote Don't Know Much About the Civil War. I discovered that Christian abolitionists and defenders of slavery both turned to the Bible to support their positions. Slaveholders pointed to the existence of slavery in biblical times, as well as laws and biblical commands requiring slaves to be obedient to justify America's peculiar institution. Abolitionists cited Jewish laws for emancipating slaves and sheltering runaway slaves, New Testament verses that suggested freeing slaves, and Jesus' commandment to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. How could the Bible be right for both of them? The moral quandary pitting slavery against abolition marked a turning point in American history. For the first time, doubt was cast on the Bible's authority. My own curiosity about these troubling questions of biblical authority and accuracy come at a time when new research and scholarship are challenging many accepted notions about the Bible. For instance, there have been startling discoveries drawn from the Dead Sea Scrolls, the ancient Hebrew Bible texts, unearthed 50 years ago in some caves in the desert near the Dead Sea. These scrolls, the oldest known versions of the Hebrew scriptures that make up the Old Testament, have added immensely to an understanding of Bible texts and life at the time Jesus lived. Even more dramatic and controversial are questions raised in the Gnostic Gospels, a book that explores a cache of 1,500-year-old Christian documents very much at odds with the traditional New Testament stories of Jesus. Discoveries such as these are prompting serious scholars to re-examine very fundamental questions. Who wrote the Bible? Did Jesus say everything we were taught he said? Did he say more? Don't Know Much About the Bible is aimed at answering these questions for an audience that still considers the Bible sacred and important, but just doesn't know what it says. Of course, these sorts of questions also challenge traditional notions about what the Bible says, and I suspect my approach will roil people who are possessive about the Bible. On balance, however, this is a program in which historical accuracy, cultural context, and removing confusion about archaic words and mistranslations are all given a place in understanding these ancient texts. I try not to interpret the Bible so much as explain what is actually in it. As a historian, I know that tampering with the Bible is a risky business. I'm sure that some people will not be happy with my work because it challenges conventional wisdom by asking questions. Many people have been taught not to question the Bible. They fear that if you pull one loose thread, the whole thing will unravel like a cheap suit. Ultimately, the Bible is a book of faith, not history, biology, biography, science, or even philosophy. The questions I pose may be an affront to people who still believe that the Bible is the unquestionable Word of God. But for centuries, scholars and thinkers, many of them devout believers, have been raising legitimate doubts about the Bible. People of faith shouldn't fear these inquiries. If my questions upset you, blame Adam and Eve. After all, that forbidden fruit was plucked from the tree of knowledge, and knowledge is what this is all about. Underlying the Don't Know Much About series is the notion that school doesn't end when we leave the classroom. I believe it is crucial for people to question the easy assumptions they grow up with about religion, history, or a Ford versus a Chevy. The world is a school, life about learning. In the words of poet William Butler Yeats, education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Beyond lighting a fire, Don't Know Much About the Bible has more ambitious goals. We live in fascinating but confounding times. Rarely has the world seemed so corrupt, yet rarely has there been such worldwide interest in religion and spirituality. Whether it is millennial curiosity or the weary rejection of modern life, many people are pondering their lives and searching for something. Call it family values, morality, virtue, perhaps even faith. For these searchers, Don't Know Much About the Bible sets out to offer some help in attaining wisdom and discipline, for understanding words of insight, for acquiring a disciplined and prudent life, doing what is right and just and fair, in the words of Proverbs. An ambitious goal? Absolutely. In other words, for the modern spiritual journeyer, this program sets out to provide a roadmap through a Bible that remains morally instructive, vividly alive, and spiritually challenging. Can I bring you faith? Can I make you believe? I'm not even going to try. If that is what you find, amen. If you don't find faith in this program, however, I hope you will at least find wisdom.
What is the Bible?
Most people think of the Bible as a book, like a long and complicated novel with too many oddly named characters and not enough plot. Pick up a Bible. Hold it in your hand. No question about it. It's a book. But it's vastly more. The word Bible comes from the medieval Latin biblia, a singular word derived from the Greek biblos, meaning books. So, in the most literal sense, the Bible is not a single book, but an anthology, a collection of many small books. In an even broader sense, it's not just an anthology of shorter works, but an entire library. You might think of a library as a physical place, but it can also mean a collection of books. And the Bible is an extraordinary gathering of many books of law, wisdom, poetry, philosophy, and history, some of them 4,000 years old. How many books this portable library contains depends on which Bible you're clutching. The Bible of a Jew is different from the Bible of a Roman Catholic, which is different from the Bible of a Protestant. Written over the course of 1,000 years, primarily in ancient Hebrew, the Jewish Bible is the equivalent of Christianity's Old Testament. For Jews, there is no New Testament. Both the Jewish Bible and Christian Old Testament contain the same books, although arranged and numbered in a slightly different order. In Jewish traditions, their Bible is also called the Tanakh, an acronym of the Hebrew words Torah, for law or teaching, Nevi'im, for the prophets, and Ketuvim, for the writings. These are the three broad divisions into which the 39 books of Hebrew Scripture are organized. These 39 books lay out the law, traditions, and history of the Jewish people and their unique relationship with their God. Starting in the beginning, with the very creation of the heavens and earth, these 39 books follow the lives of the ancient founders of the Jewish faith, the patriarchs and the matriarchs, and recount the story of the people of ancient Israel in good times and bad. While many of us recall childhood stories of such Israelite heroes as Abraham, Moses, Joshua, and David, the true centerpiece of these books is the code of divine laws, primarily laid out in the first 5 books, or Torah, that both Jews and Christians believe was given by God to the prophet Moses more than 3,000 years ago. For Christians who worship the same one God of Judaism, this Old Testament is a significant part of their religion and interpreting. That process began about 4,000 years ago and involved many writers working at different times, a fact that may still come as a distinct surprise to a good many readers.
Are the Dead Sea Scrolls the original Bible?
In the spring of 1947, while the British still controlled Palestine, Mohammed ed-Din Thoth, fish can't live in these waters, hence a Dead Sea. In the hills that surround the Dead Sea, the young goat herder dropped a stone into a cave and heard it hit something. Investigating further, he came across ancient clay pots filled with scrolls and scraps of old leather covered in mysterious writing. His accidental find was the beginning of one of the most momentous and controversial discoveries in history, that of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Muhammad's find launched a wider search of the surrounding area, generally called Qumran, approximately 10 miles south of Jericho, on a plateau overlooking the Dead Sea. After the initial discovery sent amateurs crawling all over these rocky hills, scurrying to find more scrolls, an orderly archaeological search of Qumran was eventually organized. Over the years, many more scrolls and remnants of scrolls were uncovered. 50 years after that first find, researchers are still trying to piece together all of the tiny bits and pieces of leather fragments preserved by the dry desert air. What is clear is that these ancient scrolls included some of the oldest known texts of the Hebrew Bible ever found. Written in both Hebrew and Aramaic, a Syrian language closely related to Hebrew, and the language spoken by Jesus, more than 200 biblical documents have been found. Some are almost complete, others are in fragments. The scrolls contain at least a portion of every book of the Hebrew Bible, except the book of Esther. Sophisticated dating techniques have proven that some of these scrolls were written nearly 300 years before Jesus' of Hebrew books in the Bible had not yet been set. And while these old books are very similar to the Hebrew scriptures as they are known today, there were slightly different versions of some of these ancient Hebrew texts. While the scrolls from Qumran offer fascinating information about the Hebrew text of the Bible and life in first century Palestine, they leave another big, tantalizing question unresolved.
Who wrote the Hebrew Bible of Old Testament?
Many readers of the Bible are really so. The history of the Holy Scriptures that modern Jews and Christians study is a fantastic story in itself, a tale out of an Indiana Jones movie. It's still unfolding with each new archaeological dig and discovery of an ancient scroll. Yet, while the depth of our knowledge grows, the answer to a basic these various translations over the centuries have shaped perceptions of the Bible and what people believe it says. It still comes as a surprise to some English speakers that the Bible was not written in English, or to German speakers that it was not written in German. But research into ancient manuscripts, such as the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the discovery of other ancient libraries have provided many more clues about the people who did write the Bible. First, researchers have learned that some of what appears in the most ancient sections of the Bible, including some of the stories in Genesis, was probably borrowed from other more ancient civilizations, particularly those of Egypt and Babylon. Various aspects of the laws that God gives to Moses in Exodus are similar to Babylonian laws known as the Code of Hammurabi, which is a few centuries older than the Bible. The story of the infant Moses set afloat in a basket is similar to the Mesopotamian legend of an ancient king named Sargon. In other words, the authors of the Bible, like writers before and since, were not above liberal borrowing, or what modern writers call fair use. The beginning of the actual process of writing down what Jews call the Tanakh and what Christians call the Old Testament dates back more than 3,000 years to approximately 1000 BCE. BCE, or before the Common Era, replaces BC, before Christ, in the dating system scholars now prefer. The actual process of writing down the scriptures followed an oral tradition that goes back at least another 1,000 years. The oldest of the Hebrew scriptures are the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. In Jewish tradition, these 5 are called the Torah, which means law or teaching. They are also known as both the 5 books of Moses and, in Greek, the Pentateuch, or 5 scrolls.
Didn't Moses write the Torah?
For centuries, Moses was accepted as the author of the 5 books of Torah. The Torah stated that Moses wrote down what he was told, so this was not simply a scholar's opinion, but an unquestioned matter of faith for both Jews and Christians. Some editions of the Bible still assert that Moses was the author of Genesis, and there are earnest believers who hold that as an article of faith. In the past, daring to question that fact, nations were elevated over blind faith. Other scholars began to question the authorship of Moses. A French priest who raised questions about Moses was arrested and forced to recant his views. In the grand tradition of the Roman Catholic Church, his writing was banned and burned. The official church resisted these questions about Moses for the same reason it always does. To ask questions raises doubt. Troubling, there were different names for God. If God had dictated these scriptures to Moses, why hadn't God used the same name all the time? And finally, how could Moses write at the end of Deuteronomy, "Then Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab at the Lord's command"? These and other troubling questions raised by the mystery of Moses just wouldn't go away. And as the Moses, equally important was the mounting evidence that the books attributed to Moses were composed at very different historical times. To many serious scholars, it seemed apparent that more than one author was at work. On many of these points, honest people still disagree. The difference is no one is being burned for heresy any longer.
If not Moses, then who?
Most scholars now agree that there were at least 4 or 5 main authors, or groups of authors, of the Hebrew Scriptures. They believe that they were composed over a long time, stretching from sometime around 1000 to 400 BCE. The idea that the Torah evolved from a combination of various sources is formally known as the documentary hypothesis. This thinking gained such weight that by 1943, even the Vatican, under Pope Pius XII, acknowledged it was time to solve these questions. Today, the idea is widely accepted and taught by leading religious schools, including the divinity schools at Harvard and Yale, the Union Theological Seminary, and both the Jewish Theological Seminary and the Hebrew Union College. The precise identity of who wrote these books is an unsolved and most likely an unsolvable mystery, barring an archaeological find of the most revolutionary sort. But the principal authors have been given names and are identified by 5 letters of the alphabet: J, E, D, P, and R. J is the oldest and perhaps most celebrated of these presumed authors. J is from the first letter of the German word Yahweh, the source of the word Jehovah, another mistranslation now written in English as Yahweh. The biblical writer, codenamed J, consistently calls the Israelite God Yahweh. J is the Hebrew Bible's best storyteller, more interesting, more humorous, and more human than the others. J's Yahweh interacts with man easily and directly. Close on J's heels is E, the Elohist, so called because this author preferred to use the word Elohim for God. Although some scholars have placed E before or even contemporary with J, most think E came later, perhaps between 850 and 800 BCE. Likely worked between 700 and 600 BCE and was responsible for large portions of the book of Deuteronomy. D is also thought to have shaped the major historical works of Hebrew scripture that describe the conquest of Canaan and the establishment of the kingdom of Israel. The texts credited to P, known as the priestly author, include some of the most familiar words in Western civilization, including in the beginning, the creation account found in Genesis 1, and the first version of the Ten Commandments. P's contribution was in justifying all of the ritual laws developed by the early Jewish priesthood. P might as well have been called L because he is so concerned with the law, but he is also often as long-winded and tedious as a lawyer. In addition to these 4 writers, or groups of writers, there was probably another individual or group responsible for creating the Pentateuch and some of the other early books of Israelite history as they now stand. In some respects, this was the most extraordinary feat. R was the redactor, or editor, who took the 4 existing strands and spliced them together, probably around 400 BCE. Like the others, R's identity is a mystery. No one even knows whether there was more than one redactor. The work of the redactor is fascinating because of the way so many different and even contradictory strands of scripture were woven together. But it is safe to say that David didn't write all, or even most, of...
Yeah, this is the Cutting Edge. You're listening to a tape name. Don't know much about the Bible. Very interesting, theological, very precise history. Okay, the time is 12 o'clock on IRFM.
Brothers and sisters, this is Janet. Join us with respect for
Thursdays, 2 to 6 p.m. for IRFM. Coming through.
Nah, man, that no sound like Muta.
How we am gonna deal with?
Alright, sir. Watch out, twins. 2 of you can't make one of me. Step in, Razor. This and every Thursday, 2 to 6 p.m. Yes, Rasta. The art of war.
Everything you always wanted to say, but
down in something like their present form until about 400 BCE, long after Moses and David. Some were not considered holy scripture for many more years. It was only around 90 CE that the Jewish rabbis closed the book on what they considered the official list of their Bible. CE, or Common Era, is the historical dating system which scholars now prefer over AD, or Anno Domini.
Who were the children of Israel?
Why is there no evidence outside the Bible that such crucial personalities as Abraham or Moses existed? Why didn't the Israelites think to make sure that they kept track of which precise mountain was Mount Sinai of the Ten Commandments? These are bothersome questions for any thinking reader of the Bible. But they point to another underlying issue. Most of us have no sense of the historical background of the Israelites and little idea as to who the people of the Hebrew Bible actually were. This brings us to a basic fact. It is nearly impossible to understand the writing and meaning of the Bible without understanding the history of the people who wrote it, the ancient Israelites. Who were these people? The first Jews. Located on the eastern coast of the Mediterranean, the world of the Bible is a tiny area, but it was a natural bridge between three continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe, as well as a natural beachhead for seafaring traders from the Mediterranean. And it was this geography that made the area such a collecting point for so many different groups who have had so much impact on history. Though small in area, this land the Bible called Canaan features an extraordinary diversity of climate and features. A gentle coastline slopes up to mountains and the vast deserts beyond. The Jordan River flows from the steep, snow-tipped mountains of Jordan into a beautiful freshwater lake, the Sea of Galilee, before plunging down to the Dead Sea. Into this land of such striking contrasts came waves of people, some as wanderers, some as traders, but many as invaders and conquerors. This was a blood-soaked piece of real estate, just as it continues to be today. Bracketing the land of Canaan were the two great superpowers of the ancient world. To the north and east was the land of Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization that sprung up in the fertile plains between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. At the extreme other end of the land was Egypt, home of a civilization that lasted for thousands of years. Wedged into a tiny strip of land between the sea and desert, Canaan served as bridge, buffer, and battleground between these two great ancient lands, whose emperors vied for control of the area for centuries. The land called Canaan in the Bible gradually grew to include both rural and urban people. A true melting pot, it was a land of herders, farmers, and traders. It was also a land of many gods and religions, although one group of Canaanite gods was most widely worshipped. The supreme god, the creator, was called El, a word that figures prominently in Genesis, as evidenced in such names as Israel and Bethel. El's son was the storm god Baal, another name that appears prominently throughout ancient Israel's violent history. And among Baal's consorts were Astarte and Asherah, mythical female goddesses who must have been very alluring to the children of Israel. The followers of Moses and their descendants kept getting into trouble with their Yahweh God because they continued to worship these fertility goddesses instead of Yahweh. Since worshiping Baal and his goddesses probably meant having sex, or watching priests have sex, it was presumably more appealing to the masses than a religion that involved killing small animals and didn't allow women in the temple. This oversexed Canaan was the little piece of land that the Israelites said they had been promised by their God. There is little historical or archaeological evidence to tell much about the people who came to be called Hebrews, a word possibly derived from an Egyptian word, Habiru, a derogatory term for outsiders, or Jews, derived from the later Roman name for the country, Judea. No one really knows when the children of Israel arrived in Canaan. No one really knows precisely where they came from, although the evidence points to beginnings in the Tigris-Euphrates area. At some point, they moved into Canaan, and sometime after 2000 BCE, some of them crossed into Egypt and remained there in the Nile Delta for a few hundred years. This group left Egypt, where they said they had been enslaved by an unnamed pharaoh, and moved into the wastelands of either the Sinai or Arabian desert for 40 years under the direction of a charismatic leader named Moses, who said he spoke to God. Through Moses, the ancient promises that these people would one day possess Canaan were reconfirmed. By around 1200 BCE, through conquest or gradual migration, the Bible has it both ways, they eventually took control of the land from the Canaanites, whose religious and sexual practices were so abhorrent to them. It's difficult to say precisely what these Canaanites did that was so abominable, but it can be assumed they had sex in their temples and possibly didn't flinch at homosexuality, incest, bestiality, or human sacrifice. The first piece of historical evidence of the existence of the children of Israel is a stone plaque, or stela, from Egypt, dated 1235 BCE. This stela, from the reign of Pharaoh Merneptah, mentions the complete destruction of the people of Israel. Merneptah's claim of a lopsided military victory, obviously inflated, is the first recorded reference to the people of Israel outside the Bible.
If the scriptures were written in Hebrew, where did all the Greek words come from?
Approximately 2,000 years of history pass within the Bible's pages. Great empires came and went around the ancient Near East. Along with those rising and falling empires and cultures, Hebrew and Aramaic fell into disuse, eventually replaced by Greek. And sometime around 250 BCE, when many Jews realized that they no longer understood the Hebrew of their ancient religion, someone decided to preserve those writings in a complete Greek translation of Hebrew scripture. This Greek translation was later called the Septuagint, meaning 70. According to the legend, 72 elders, 6 from each of the 12 tribes of Israel, did the translating. Each of these elders produced exactly the same translation in exactly 72 days. The number was rounded off to 70. Modern scholars dismiss the 72 identical translations as legend. In fact, the work was begun because the large Jewish community in Egypt and elsewhere in the Hellenized or Greek-speaking world needed a translation from Hebrew, which had fallen out of use during the diaspora or dispersion of Jews throughout the Mediterranean world. The Greek Septuagint became the most popular form of the Hebrew Bible. It was the unofficial scripture of the early Christians who read the Hebrew laws and prophets in Greek. Roman Catholic Bibles, such as the Jerusalem Bible, still show this influence. Some of the books in the Septuagint were not considered holy by the Jewish rabbis, who established the official canon of their Bible. When the Christian church split during the Protestant Reformation, the Protestants accepted the Jewish canon. That's why the Protestant Old Testament is the same as the Hebrew Bible, except for the order and numbering of some books. However, Roman Catholics consider the Septuagint holy, and Roman Catholic Bibles include 11 books that are not in the Hebrew or Protestant Old Testament. These books, called the Deuterocanonical books, are represented in modern Bibles in the Apocrypha. Apocrypha, not to be confused with apocalypse, is from Greek by way of Latin and means hidden. To further confuse this issue, other Christian sects, such as the Eastern Orthodox churches, recognize even more books as sacred. In other words, for nearly 2,000 years, humans have been deciding what should and shouldn't be read as the divine word of God. All of them claim to be inspired by God in making those judgments, but all don't agree. His work resulted in the Versio Vulgata, or Common Translation, better known as the Vulgate Bible. To Jerome, Vulgata meant vulgar in the sense of commonly used, rather than the widespread modern meaning of vulgar as dirty. But this is a perfect example of how words change meaning, a significant factor in understanding the Bible. By hand, in the famed illuminated manuscripts of the so-called Dark Ages. Of course, few people could afford to own such a book, and few ever saw one. Fewer still could read it. The Latin Mass became the predominant form of worship in Europe, but most people had no idea what was being said in church. The advent of Gutenberg's printing press in 1450 meant the Bible could be mechanically produced, but even then, only about 200 copies of the Gutenberg Bible were produced, and it was still in Latin. But in the early years of the for bringing fire to mankind, Some of these rebels would pay for their crimes. Some died for their belief that the Bible was for all the people to read. Every stand-up comedian, speaker, or preacher knows that the best way to get an audience's attention is to tell a good story. If the story is funny, that's even better. A little sin and sex? Better still. That's why writers from Homer, Aesop, and the other Greeks right through Shakespeare and up to modern Hollywood from Sunday school. The Hebrew prophets often cloaked their messages in stories. And Jesus certainly relied upon parables and short stories to teach. But nowhere is the truth of the Bible being a great story more evident than in its opening book. Here is an entire account of the beginning of human civilization and God's unique relationship with humanity, reduced to a series of fascinating narratives. This mini-series is filled with all the cliffhanging action and humor that we expect from television or the movie.
REFM, thought-provoking, always smoking, lyrics like a bazooka. You are listening to Mutabaruka.
The Torah by the opening words, or first significant word in the book, call it Bereshit, in the beginning. Readers who return to Genesis after an absence may be surprised to discover that it is a much different story from the one they may dimly recall from childhood. Genesis covers time from the beginning of the world through early human history and the rise of civilization. Out of nothingness, and simply by speaking, God creates an orderly world and humanity. In this first creation, which begins in the first chapter of Genesis, it takes God 6 days to create the heavens and earth. Then come the animals, and finally, man and woman are created simultaneously, as apparent equals in God's image. After a hard week at the office, God decides to put his feet up and take a day off, instituting the first Sabbath. The second version of creation is set in the Garden of Eden. It makes no mention of the number of days God took to accomplish this heavy lifting, and the order of creation is different from the first account. In the second version, man is created before the trees and other animals. The other big difference in this second creation is that man is created first, and then woman is created out of man. Side by side, these are clearly two different stories featuring substantially different details. This is where the J versus P verse. P describes the Creator neatly making the universe, setting up shop on earth, and finally getting around to making people. In the words of the King James Version, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Clearly, in the first creation account, there is no differentiating between male and female. God creates both sexes at the same time, both in his image. Of course, this first creation account raises all sorts of troubling questions on its own, even without a competing version in the next chapter. Who is this us that God mentions when he says, "Let us make man in our image"? So far, the creation hasn't included anyone else. Is it the regal us? Together, both can't literally be made in God's image, can they? And if God says this creation is good, why does it go so bad? Of course, questions like these have puzzled philosophers and religious thinkers for centuries, filling libraries with discourses on the nature of God and creation. Certainly, those problems are vexing enough. But Genesis complicates matters as the creation story is retold with significant changes. In this version, attributed to J, God creates earth and the heavens and then makes Adam from and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. After that, God makes the animals and birds to keep man company. Seeing that Adam is still lonely, God makes woman out of one of Adam's ribs. In this account, there is no mention of how many days this took and when, or if, God rested. These stories were not entirely original. Both the first creation account, in which God speaks and the world is made, and the second creation account, starring Adam and Eve, share similarities to other creation myths of the ancient Near East. The myths of Mesopotamia and Egypt, the two great civilizations that bracketed the land of the Israelites, also celebrated the concept of a divine word. In other words, the ancient Israelites drew upon commonly held beliefs about the creation, ancient folklore that came from the lands and people that had the most impact on the ancient Near East. That basic fact will be repeated often throughout Genesis. The difference was that in Genesis, it was shaped into an account of a special relationship between the Israelite God and humanity that had no precedent. The ancient nature gods, whose behavior was more human than divine, were transformed by the Israelites into a personal God with a very clear and rigid moral code. This God was going to make these people his favorites, but they had to toe a very sharp line of good behavior, or else. Much of the Hebrew scriptures will tell the story of what happens when the children of Israel don't keep up their end of the promise.
Who was right, Genesis or Darwin?
How do you balance a belief that the world was created by divine pronouncement a mere 6,000 years ago with scientific observations that modern humans walked 117,000 years ago? Till Charles Darwin rolled into town in 1859 with his notion of natural selection, most people accepted that God made the world in 6 days and then he rested. For nearly 4,000 years, many people accepted Genesis as a perfectly viable account of the world's beginnings. Then science turned into the skunk at the garden party. When Copernicus, sharing common ancestry with the apes, most of the religious world did not take kindly to this suggestion. It was one thing to discover that Galileo had been right about the solar system. It was another to accept that humankind was kissing cousin to the monkey. The challenge remains, more than a century after Darwin first proposed the ideas that formed the basis for modern evolutionary theory. Can science and religion coexist? Nowhere is that battle more clearly defined than in the question over the divine creation. As many creationists, science is ultimately left with more questions. The notion that the universe is all energy has forced scientists who deal in the astonishing world of quantum physics to look past their equations to a universal creative force. At the same time, to accept that the Bible is filled with poetry, allegory, teaching parables, and other stories doesn't alter the fundamental truth to be found in the Genesis accounts. As Pope John Paul II said when he gave support to Darwinian evolution, if the human body has its origin in living material which pre-exists it, the spiritual soul is immediately created by God. Of course, science can't speak of the creation or even existence of the soul. The soul can't be removed, weighed, and dissected as human organs can. Why not see the creation in Genesis as a magnificent metaphor for the Big Bang, an event that science acknowledges but does not yet fully understand? Viewing the opening words of Genesis as a poetic account of this cosmic instant of creation, when matter essentially burst out of energy, doesn't alter the essential truth of Genesis for those who believe it. Having made man out of the dust and brought him into existence with the breath of life, God places man in Eden, warning him not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, threatening death if he does. Then God creates the rest of the animals to keep him company. The man names these animals, but still doesn't have a proper partner. God then causes the man to sleep and removes one of his ribs and forms woman. The man and woman are naked in the garden, unashamedly enjoying sex. Along comes the serpent, and the woman is convinced to eat from the forbidden tree. The serpent promises her that she will be like God, or gods, depending on the translation. The woman agrees, then gives the tradition of finger-pointing by saying, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me fruit from the tree, and I ate." God is not happy. It is the first of several biblical moments in which he will wonder if this man thing was such a good idea after all. But instead of starting from scratch, God gets mad, then he gets even. The serpent is cursed to crawl in his belly, and there will be permanent hostility between snakes and people. The woman will suffer the pain.
Were there really apples in Eden?
Apples are supposed to be good for you. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. And what's more wholesome in America than apple pie? So how come apples got such a bad name in Genesis? Truth is, there was no apple in Eden. Genesis doesn't even mention forbidden fruit. The Eden account mentions only the fruit of knowledge and the fruit of everlasting life. Some historians have suggested a number of likely suspects as the forbidden fruit, including apricots, pomegranates, or figs. A prime candidate since the leaves of the fig tree became the first unisex leisure wear. Fig trees also figure prominently in other spiritual tales, particularly that of the Buddha, who achieved enlightenment while sitting beneath a tree. For great artists and political cartoonists throughout history has no biblical basis. The apple wasn't connected to the Eden story until the European Middle Ages, when artists began to depict Eve with an apple, presumably as a way to give common people a familiar fruit. In eating from the tree, Adam and Eve acquire the capacity for rational and ethical judgments, one of the key ingredients in setting human beings apart from the rest of the animal world. If the first couple had obeyed God, it would have meant that humanity would have lived in a paradise without wants, worry, or golden age. The Greeks' Pandora, like Eve, is responsible for the misfortunes of mankind because she disobeyed the order not to open the box out of which all the troubles of the world flew. Like all such myths of a lost golden age, the biblical fall is an attempt to account for the problems of evil and human suffering, and a symbol of how humans have always yearned for a better, but possibly unattainable world. Adam and Eve have two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain, the firstborn, was a farmer. Abel was the first shepherd. Both bring offerings to God, but God rejects Cain's offering of grain without explanation, preferring Abel's, which was the firstborn of his flock. Angry that God rejects his offering, Cain decides to take it out on Abel and kills his brother. God discovers this act when he asks Cain where Abel is, and the famous, "Am I my brother's keeper?" reply is given. God curses Cain by making him a wanderer, the original fugitive. Adam and Eve give birth to a third son, Seth.
Where did Cain's wife come from?
So we have Adam, Eve, and their sons, Cain and Abel. The story of Cain and Abel introduces many of the themes that will recur throughout Genesis and the Hebrew Scriptures. Of course, it marks the first murder. But there is also the first appearance of sibling rivalry, and the enmity between brothers will be replayed throughout Genesis. The two characters also symbolically represent the farmer, Cain, and the nomadic herder, Abel. Tension between these groups was common throughout ancient times, so the story stands as a mythical explanation for the conflict between these two ancient callings, the true oldest professions. Cain goes off to the land of Nod, which means wandering, and finds an unnamed wife. Where did she come from? The scriptures contain no explanation for Cain's wife or the people Cain fears might murder him. It would have been quite clear for the ancient Israelites. They were meant to rule over Canaan's descendants, the people who lived in the Promised Land. The Canaanites had a reputation for fairly lascivious sexual practices that were highly offensive in the eyes of the Israelites. Seeing one's father naked, and in some interpretations a homosexual act by Ham has been suggested, was associated with the lewd Canaanite sexual practices. In Leviticus, the phrase, "to uncover nakedness," is a euphemism for sexual relations. But the real historical impact of this passage was the later interpretation widely given to this story in 17th and 18th century America. Looking for moral justification for slavery, American slaveholders argued, incorrectly, that Ham was the ancestor of the so-called southern tribes that included Africa. As the children of Ham, Africans were therefore meant to be slaves. a point of view that can only be charitably called way off base. Still, it was a widely accepted interpretation in England and America until well into the 1800s, when some Christian groups began to condemn slavery as a grave sin. Numerous other biblical verses were also cited in defense of slavery, although overlooked were some of the other Israelite laws regarding slavery, including invocations to free runaway slaves. The other two sons of Noah received great blessings, and the line beginning with Noah's son Shem eventually leads to the patriarch Abraham. The name Shem is the source of the word Semite, which applies to all the groups who were descended from Shem, Jew and Arab alike. Born in a direct line from Noah, Abram, the son of Terah, was also directly descended from Adam. The founding patriarch of Jews and Arabs alike, Abram, whose name will later be changed by God to Abraham, had a brother named Haran. Haran died, but had a son named Lot, who was Abram's nephew. Abram's wife was Sarai, who was also his half-sister. Terah took his son Abram, Sarai, and Lot to Haran. A little confusion here, because the place name is the same name of Abram's dead brother. Haran is the name of a city in Mesopotamia, in what is now modern Syria. While in Haran, Abram is instructed by God to go to nearby Canaan, a land that God promises to Abram and his descendants. In Canaan, Abram sets up 2 altars and invokes the name of the Lord. When a famine strikes, Abraham. But God promises yet another son to the incredulous Abram, now 99 years old, and Sarai, who is 90. God tells Abram that he will now be called Abraham, which means ancestor of a multitude. God promises him all the land of Canaan and asks him to keep the deal by circumcising every male in his tribe. Abraham agrees, and all the adult males, including 13-year-old Ishmael, are circumcised. The ritualistic removal of the male foreskin is not peculiar to the descendants of Abraham. It was practiced by many African, South American, and Middle Eastern people, including the Egyptians. Sarai laughs at the seemingly ridiculous notion that she will bear a son at her age. God also changes her name in the underworld to recover his beloved wife, Eurydice. As they leave the underworld, he ignores the instruction not to look back, and Eurydice is lost to him forever. In the case of Lot's wife, the ancient tale has been cited to explain the peculiar salt formations that surround the Dead Sea. Having waited until he was 100 years old for the son and heir who would fulfill God's promise, Abraham is told by God to take the boy and offer him as a burnt sacrifice. Abraham never questions this directive in the scriptures. He simply does as he is told, offering blind obedience to a God who would make him kill his beloved child. Even when the boy asks his father where the sacrificial lamb is, what faith means, and that God had done well in selecting Abraham to be the founder of the chosen people. But there's another angle to this story, not usually discussed in Sunday school. In some cults and religions of the ancient Near East, human sacrifice was still practiced at that time. In fact, Hebrew law even states that the firstborn offspring of humans and animals were to be offered to God. The aborted sacrifice of Isaac has been interpreted as a symbolic moment in which human sacrifice was rejected by God. Unfortunately, the practice didn't stop with Abraham. As the later history of ancient Israel shows, human sacrifice continued in Jerusalem for centuries. After Abraham's wife Sarah dies at age 127, he buries her in a cave in Hebron. Significantly, he purchases the burial land from the local people, the Hittites. And the verses elaborately explain the great measures Abraham took to stake a legal claim to this land. This is a crucial passage, one of the oldest recorded real estate deals, which is viewed as a legal confirmation of possession of land that had already been divinely promised. In other words, God's word is one thing, but a deed is better in court. Abraham also realizes that his son Isaac should have a wife, but does not want a woman of Canaan. One more dig at the Canaanites by the Genesis author. In one of the longest narratives in Genesis, Abraham sends a servant back to his homeland. At Nahor, near Haran, the servant encounters a beautiful girl at a well. Again, there is a confusion of place and personal names. Nahor is the name of a town, but it is also the name of another of Abraham's brothers. The girl draws water for him, and Abraham's servant treats this as a sign from God that this is the girl for Isaac. She is Rebekah, the daughter of Abraham's nephew, Bethuel. Abraham's servant is welcomed into the house by Rebekah's older brother, Laban, and in an elaborate negotiation, the two strike a deal for Rebekah to become Isaac's wife. After Sarah's death, old Abraham decides he's not done sowing oats yet either. He takes another wife, Keturah, who has 6 more of Abraham's children. These are the ancestors of other Arabic tribes, including the Midianites, who later figure in the story of Moses. When Abraham finally dies at age 175, he is buried alongside Sarah in the cave on the site he had purchased at Hebron. Another genealogy follows Abraham's death and traces the children of Ishmael, who also had 12 sons who were later organized into 12 tribes. Like Abraham, Isaac is promised the land and many descendants. He is like Abraham in another respect too. Once again, there is a famine, and God tells Isaac to go to the land of King Abimelech, with whom Abraham had an earlier dispute. In a tale that mirrors Abraham's lie about his wife, Sarah, to the Pharaoh, Isaac tells the local people that Rebekah is his sister, because he too fears he might be killed because Rebekah is so desirable. When King Abimelech sees Isaac fondling Rebekah in a field, he says, "So she is your wife. Why then did you say, 'She is my sister'?" Abimelech orders no one to bother Isaac, who goes on to prosper. King Abimelech is identified here, and in an earlier episode, as the king of the Philistines, the tribe that will play such a prominent part in the early history of Israel. This is another example of an apparent error in the chronology on the writer's part. The Philistines were part of the invasion of so-called sea peoples, and did not enter this area in large numbers until after 1200 BCE, long after these events would have taken place. Like Isaac's mother, the beautiful Rebekah is also barren, but she conceives and bears twin sons after Isaac prays to God. The firstborn is Esau. The second son, born gripping his older brother's heel, is Jacob. The common mythic theme of hostile twins is played out here as accounting for the two related tribes, the Israelites and the Edomites. Jacob, the younger,
Cutting edge with Mutabaruka. We are listening to our meds. You know here, cutting edge, the edge, the edge.
Jacob, the younger, is a trickster, a classic mythic character, like Odysseus of Greek mythology. He becomes a shepherd and was favored by his mother. Esau is the hunter, slow-witted and easily deceived, but he is Isaac's favorite. Jacob first gets Esau to sell his birthright as the firstborn son for a pot of stew. In a more serious deceit, Jacob is prompted by his mother to trick his father Isaac, who is losing his sight. Rebekah cooks Isaac's favorite meal, then covers Jacob with a kid skin so that he will seem to be as hairy as Esau. Jacob tricks his father into giving him the deathbed blessing usually bestowed on the firstborn son. When Esau finds out what Jacob has done, he poignantly asks his father for another blessing. Isaac tells Esau that he will live away from the fat of the land and shall live by the sword. His father also says Esau will serve his brother, but that one day he will break free. After receiving this mixed blessing, Esau still threatens to kill Jacob.
What is Jacob's ladder?
Fearful that Esau may still try to kill Jacob, Rebekah schemes to have her younger son sent somewhere out of harm's way. In a story that mirrors the search for Isaac's bride, Jacob also sets off for Haran to find a wife. The narrative follows Jacob on a long journey, like that of the Odyssey, although not quite as perilous. It is still another ancient poetic tradition, the hero's wandering search, filled with mystical happenings and extraordinary events, and his eventual return home. On the first night of his journey, Jacob uses a stone for a pillow and dreams of a ladder reaching up to heaven. On it, angels are going up and down. God then speaks to Jacob, renewing the promise of land and descendants made to Abraham and Isaac. When Jacob wakes, he takes the stone he had used for a pillow and pours oil on it to sanctify this place that he calls Bethel, or House of God, and promises that the Lord who spoke to him shall be his God. He also promises God, as Abraham had done, to tithe, or give 1/10 of all he receives. While artists of the Christian era usually depicted Jacob's ladder, immortalized in a widely sung hymn, as an actual ladder, the original word for ladder can also be translated as ramp or stairway. Long before Led Zeppelin, in other words, the Bible was doing Stairway to Heaven. Abraham's son Jacob wants a girl just like the girl that dear old dad got. So he too goes to Laban, Rebekah's brother, as Abraham's servant did. And he also meets a beautiful girl at the well. Unlike Abraham's servant, who carried a lavish treasure as a bride price, Jacob is broke. He promises to work for Uncle Laban for 7 years to pay for Rachel. The plot thickens through a series of tricks played by each of the actors in this drama, which must have been popular as it was told around the campfires over the ages. On the morning of the wedding, Laban has his older daughter, Leah, dressed as the bride, veiled to conceal her identity, and she marries Jacob. After discovering this ruse, Jacob insists that he still wants Rachel and promises to serve Laban for another 7 years if he can have her too. Laban agrees, and now Jacob has 2 wives and another 7-year hitch to serve. But he manages to keep busy in that time, siring a flock of children, even though his beloved Rachel is barren. First, Leah produces 4 sons. The envious Rachel gives her slave, Bilhah, to Jacob, and Bilhah has 2 sons. Leah, who had stopped at 4, wants more sons. So she gives Jacob her maid, Zilpah. She too produces 2 sons. Leah isn't finished after all, and has another 2 sons and a daughter. Finally, Rachel's infertility is cured, and she has 2 sons, although she dies in childbirth with her second son. Before very long, Jacob has a baker's dozen of children.
How did Jacob become Israel?
Jacob, the trickster, gets his own revenge on Uncle Laban when they make a business deal regarding the herds that Jacob has been tending so successfully. Jacob and Laban agree that Jacob can keep all the spotted and speckled sheep and goats and all the black goats in the flocks. But in the night, the crafty Laban tells his sons to remove all the striped male goats, the speckled female goats, and the black lambs from the herds. Jacob has a few tricks of his own, though, and in a story that combines magic with some early genetic engineering, Jacob places striped sticks in front of the healthiest and strongest animals of the flock in breeding time. When the newborns arrive, the magical sticks have produced many striped, spotted, and speckled young. Jacob continues this process until he has successfully bred a strong herd of livestock that will be his, getting the better of his deceitful uncle. Laban and his sons aren't happy about Jacob's ruse, and God sends an angel to Jacob, warning him to leave Laban's house. After 20 years of service to his uncle, Jacob sets off with his wives, children, and flocks, without telling Laban. Before leaving, Rachel steals her father's household gods, the small wooden or stone carved idols people kept around the house for good luck. Laban catches up to Jacob and his caravan and begins to search for anything Jacob might have stolen. Rachel sits on her father's gods, and when they come to search her, she tells them she is menstruating and can't get up. The household gods were idols, typical of the cults worshipped in Canaan and elsewhere in Mesopotamia. Small carved statues or fertility symbols, they were typically placed throughout a home, just as people still hang pictures of saints or crosses. The episode in which the menstruating Rachel hides these idols would have been told by the Israelites with derisive mockery, as Rachel sat on the idols in her time of uncleanness.
REFM, thought-provoking, always smoking, lyrics like a bazooka. You are listening to Mutabaruka.
Black History Month is on way again, and you know, say, continent celebrate Black History Month, so we're going to carry through the pieces. Yes. The history, African viewpoint, African rational, African logic.
listening to Mutabaruka.
And because the Muslims and the Jews hold on upon the Pentateuch, or the Torah as you would call it, or Christian call it the Old Testament, you can see where the animosity start and how they develop from that, and hear what the man say about Esau and Jacob and what them say about Ishmael and Isaac. You know, so them use that as historical reference point to show you that this is where the animosity began with the Jews and the Arabs. Yes. And after 3,000 years, maybe 4,000 years, that animosity still linger because one nation take away another nation land and claim says God give them when none of them no own the land, because the land, according to what it is said, belong to a next set of people named Canaanites. So when a man leave from where he live and come in at the land and say a fame land because fame God give him the land, him have authority, a divine authority over that land. That's the same thing white people do when them go into other people's land. In the years ago, when we read that story there about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Esau, and we realize that there was a man, well, according to them, there was a man by the name of Canaan who was the son of Ham. And them Ham, who uncover him nakedness, but him cursed the son of Ham, which was Canaan. And then we hear now the story now where Canaan land, according to it, which is a land that is flowing with milk and honey, was given to Abraham to control that land. And it continued over years in the story where the land again come under some really serious war. And then you have Jacob who decides they go control the land. And Ishmael claims Esau claims birthright was stolen from him by Jacob with trickery. The mother tricked them. So that land, which is today now called Israel and the Palestine land, is used as a reference point in the name of God, Yahweh. Well, we did recognize it's not none of them land. According to the story, is Canaan land. And everybody get out Canaan out of the picture. Both the Arabs and the Israelis get out Canaan out of the picture when you hear about the land. So we went into the studio and we make this, where we wrote this poem, and then we went to the studio and record the poem. So we want to hear this poem where we did record over the years about Canaan land. With help, I think was in the early, maybe late 70s, early 80s. But where we get to understand them called Canaanites. The Canaanites land was taken away from them according to that historical reference there. So we see the land is drenched with blood and bodies. And now we see there's an impending war again. All of these, Obama, all of these people represent the invasion of African people land. Because the land of Canaan is in Africa. We not ask nobody that. Geographically, we are tell you say, the land of Canaan is in Africa. And all you hear them a fight and a fight and a fight. African people land them take away, rob and thief and murder the people them over the years. And we can't go there now go say African people land. You're mad? If we go to say about them, say, boy, that's not Africa. That's a Middle East. And that's what they know, you know. It's the Middle East, they move it from in Africa and put it in the Middle East. We can't go there now go claim nothing. Because you have the Arab, them, the most, there's more Arabs in Egypt right now than in Saudi Arabia. more Arabs in Egypt than Saudi Arabia. And when you check it out now, the face of Egypt is totally different from in the days when them are write these things about Canaan and this and that. The face of Egypt changed. So when one look at Egypt today, one of the wonder say then, oh, we are talking about Africa. Then, you know, say a pure white people live in Egypt. Then them not African too. Well, you have to check the history and recognize the invasion of Arabs into where you can't even, when you talk about Africa, black Africa, or whatsoever, you can't even, it don't even look like you know what you say. The way the thing going on now, it don't even look like you know what you say. When you start talking about Africa and black people, that's people that look at you look like you don't have no sense. But if you had known your history, you'd recognize that Egypt, or Kemet, as we would call it, black. That's what Kemet is, black. If you would recognize that Nubia, and if you would recognize that Kush, Somalia, and all these places was inhabited by black people burnt by the sun, melanin skin, and that Africa was raped and pillaged by foreign invaders, including the Arabs. And now we see the majority of Arabs in Africa with them religion, and them religion now is creating havoc on the minds of African people. Both religions creating havoc on the minds of the people them. That people will die and kill and murder and burn people, at least burn down people place in the name of these religions. What a terrible thing. What a terrible thing. And it now, I don't know, it now will stop. It now will stop. It will continue. And we who dare so must fight for the liberation of Africa. Because we have Africa still. And Africa will always be on the burner. And we not let it go. We not let go Africa, you know. You think we let go Africa? You think them are going to make we forget Africa? We not let it go. My album we just come out with Shana Keto, with him and Yabayu. Only for one don't even know them man, but we want to mention them. Not even Matrix know them man there. Matrix are play music every day, you know. Yabayu man, the late Yabayu. Just a year now. Just a year about Yabayu, see there. So we are going to this song here, you know. We are going to this song here. We say give thanks to the moment again, and give thanks to the time. This is Sly and Robbie, dub style, dirty flirty.